Hi, I'm Greg. Welcome to Affect Studio. Today I'm going to attempt the difficult task of proving that the speaker cab is equally important to the amp running into it when it comes to getting a great guitar sound. And on top of that, the actual cab that the speaker is sitting in, the actual enclosure, contributes, at least as much as the speaker and will dictate the overall, sound of the amp. To get us started, this is a test of speakers in and out of cabs, just so you can hear that the cab definitely does something at least. Okay, this is my deluxe reverb with the Celestian greenback. And this is the loose speaker. Back in the cab. Over the years, I've come to see the electric guitar as an acoustic instrument. Now, I know that sounds crazy, it's an electric instrument. But in the same way that an acoustic instrument never sounds better than when you're in the room with it, and if you put a piezo pickup, say, in a acoustic guitar and amplify it, it just never sounds anywhere near as good. It's exactly the same with electric guitar. It never sounds better than sitting in front of the amp, probably not too close if they're loud. And apart from being in the room, the next best thing is miking it really well. As a little community service, for anybody who's ever had a sound guy somewhere try to take a direct out of your amp rather than miking the speaker and told you it's going to sound the same, it's just another speaker, it's all, Here is the here's an amp with the speaker. Now, if I bypass the cabinet, which this is a merged profile, so the amp was profiled separately as well. And back on, in case you forgot. So yeah, you can bookmark that, and next time somebody tries to tell you that it's going to sound exactly the same, you can say, no, it's not, and I can prove it. Of course, if you have the Quad Cortex or the Kemper, you shouldn't have those issues because people can take a line out from that and be happy. It didn't take me too long after upgrading my first electric for a much nicer one to discover that the amp itself was more important than the guitar when it came to sounding good. Now, the Strat with its single coils actually didn't sound as good through the PV as the old Vantage with its humbuckers, which just drove the amp a bit harder. The real surprise came a few years later when I plugged a 50-watt Marshall Super Lead head into the speakers in my AC30 and discovered that it just sounded like a Vox. I had just sold a 78 Marshall Super Lead head, so exactly the same head as this was an early 80s one, and a quad box. So I knew that sounded really well, and there it was, just sounded more Vox than Marshall. I then plugged into my mate Mike's, he had a late 60s Marshall quad, plugged the Vox into the quad, and once again, completely different. It sounded, way more Marshall-like than it did Vox. Now, I'm just going to demonstrate that now. So here we have, I'm going to use my AC30, my 64 bassman, and my Plexi head. So starting off here, this is, just so you know what the others sound like in case you've forgotten. This is the AC30, the crunch sort of sound. Here's the bassman through its own speakers. And then here's the Plexi through the Marshall quad. So now I'm going to play, I've made profiles of all three of them into the AC30 cab. I did this after I'd profiled the Vox, and so the only change is the actual head driving the speakers, and I just quickly roughly matched up the gain levels so that they're pretty close. I'm not going to tell you which is which. I'll just play a bit and see if you can work out which amp is which when they're going through the AC30 speakers. Okay, second example. And third. Let's try that again for you. So the first one again. Number 2. And number 3. So did you pick which was which? If I wasn't reading the what's on Rig Manager, I wouldn't have been able to do it. So the first one there was the Bassman, and the second one was the Plexi head, and the last one was the Vox. Okay, so this is the same 3 amps into the Vox speakers again, different order. So you can't, think you're hearing the same thing. See if you can work it out this time. This is the amps basically close to full. I did the Bassman and then I matched up the other 2. That was 1. Here's the second one. And number 3. Let me try that again for you. This is the first one again. Okay, number 2. And number 3. So there you go. I couldn't have picked that once again. They all sound a little different, but the similarities are more than the differences. So the first one was the Plexi, followed by the AC30, followed by the Bassman. So yeah, you can see my surprise. I'd always heard that the unique sound of the Vox was due to, the unusual circuitry, EQ, no negative feedback, EL84s, etc. But here it is, 3 supposedly quite different sounding amp designs that all sound remarkably similar through the same cab. Now, not the same, and of course I often mix and match cabs with amps for exactly that reason. But yeah, the cab is shaping it more than the amp is. Let's see if it's just the AC30 cab that has these magical qualities to make everything sound similar. This is the same 3 amps into the quad box. I set this one up quite quickly, just a single 421 on the 75 watt speaker that's in there. So yeah, it's not quite as good as I'd normally have them sounding, but it's okay. Example 2. And example 3. Let's just try that again. That was 1, this is 2. And this is example 3. So did you get that? Me neither. That time it was the Bassman first, followed by the Plexi, followed by the AC30. Now let's try it with some gain. That should really sort the amps out from the amps. What do you sort amps out from? No, short the differences anyway. Okay, so here's number one. Once again, different order to the other time. Number two. And number three. All right, let's try that again. Number two. And number three. So that time it was the AC30 first of all, followed by the Bassman, followed by the Plexi. So what about the actual speaker that's in the cab? Surely that's as important as the cab. Well, yes, obviously it is, and obviously speakers sound different. But I still contend that the actual cab holding them dictates, the overall sound of the amp as much or more than the speaker does. Now, I've had, 5 different types of speakers in my AC30 in the time that I've owned it. It came stock from the factory with some Fane speakers, which were a little dark. It had, then I put in some Celestians, and I've had 3 other types of Celestians in there. And in every case, the speakers definitely sound a little different, but it's never been, anything but an AC30. There's no mistaking that it's the AC30 sound with that cab. And then, likewise, my quad currently has 4 different types of Celestian in there. And, the higher wattage versions are certainly crisper and, crunchier, sort of, tighter sound than the old greenback that came with it. But they all sound like a quad box. It doesn't sound like a different amp with the different speakers. So that's a brief overview of what the cab is contributing to the sound of our electric guitar. Yes, I did say brief. I've decided to cut out a couple of experiments that I'd set up because it was just going to take way too long, and this video is going to go on forever. And I've also decided to actually split this in half, so it really was going to go on forever, and do a second video which is going to talk about how the sound of speakers change depending on how hard you drive them, which is quite critical information to understand when you're using the Kemper or the Quad Cortex. And then I'm going to compare the built-in speaker impulse responses to full profiles and captures, just to see how they compare. So as always, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you very soon because you'll watch the second part of this speaker video.